Now, videos are great, but I think everybody wants to hear directly from the source. So in this next part of our program, our panelists who were highlighted in the videos will engage in a lively discussion. Now, it's lively because it is led by Sarah Benz.
Welcome, panelists. Good to see you all. How is everyone today? Thumbs up. Awesome. Awesome. How is it Wednesday too? Wow. All right. It looks like I am joined by Sarah Powell and Erica Lemke. So Sarah, the first question of the panel is going to you. How has your life changed since becoming a DBI champion?
It's been a whirlwind 24 hours, but it's changed quite a bit. Yes.
Yes, I can imagine so. Congratulations. Okay, serious question, Project Stair. In Project Stair, what has been the biggest impact that you've seen when working with teachers?
Erica, do you want to take it first?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think probably because we've been working primarily with, all together with middle school teachers, we've seen a lot of growth in their understanding of some of the basics of DBI that maybe we take for granted, and probably the 92 people on this call, things like progress monitoring or, looking at data to make changes in interventions. Some of those kinds of basics, our middle school teachers have really not only adopted those, but they've indicated in many cases that that's new learning for them. We worked with a lot of general education middle school teachers in Missouri, and so they were maybe not as familiar with these concepts, and it's really enhanced their teaching. So I think that's one of the keys for us.
Awesome. Okay, we have more questions for you, but we're going to do round robin. So speaking of Robin, you're up next. That was not planned. That's a good moderator, y'all. Okay. So Robin, you are a powerhouse. It's kind of hard to believe that you've just started implementation of DBI this year. So congratulations on all the awesome things that you already have in place. What has been one of the biggest lessons learned that you have had through implementing DBI? So I know that not a lot of people would willingly sign up for state technical assistance. So kudos to you, but also I know that there's been some lessons learned out of that.
Absolutely. Well, Jason is very, very persuasive. When he was at Colorado Department of Education, he was like, yeah, let's do this. Come on. So we had a little coaxing, and it's incredible that we had schools sign up to do this in addition to being in COVID school this year. So I do have to kudos to the schools that decided to participate. So again, I think for me, the biggest aha and for the team was that universal instruction piece. Here you're working on DBI, and this is brand new to this school. Like I said, they had a really strong MTSS process. But for them, I think a big aha was really to look at that universal instruction. What is best first instruction for the student? So I think that was really powerful for them. Really, when we looked at calculating goals and calculating student rate of improvement, I think that was also big learning for some of our teachers. We had gen ed teachers, but we had some special ed teachers who had experience with that, but our gen ed teachers didn't. And so being able to say, well, what is an appropriate goal? What should we shoot for? As opposed to just, well, should they grow 20%, 10%? So I think that was also big learning that came about from the school, and just really looking at their whole process and coming together and looking at data, looking at those last 4 data points, making those adjustments, and really improving that intervention for the student. So I think those were three really big areas that came out of our DBI work. What's funny that you're doing focused work, but really you have to stop, look at that universal and first best instruction.
Absolutely. And those structures, we're going to ask you more questions about those, but let me go on to the next one. So Elsa, the Renaissance lady, you are just as bad as Tom Jones. It sounds like you really do everything all the time. So, wow. Okay. Well, Elsa, so glad to have you here. I think everyone's mouth dropped when you said 70 teachers pushed their way into that course. Yeah. So in your opinion, what's the special sauce in DBI that would draw so many teachers to say, I want to do this, I need this? What, in your opinion, is that special sauce?
I think one of the things that the teachers were finding was that the general ed teachers and the special ed teachers weren't speaking that same language. I think there was like this whole philosophical shift with MTSS that needed to happen. And one of our concentrations was on all of us, because I'm on the MTSS district team, was to get us all, yeah, I'm on like all the teams.
Of course you are, Elsa. I'm not shocked by anything you're gonna say that you do at this point.
So so one of the things we wanted to concentrate on was that language, getting everyone to speak the same language, the MTSS language. And for me, the most important part was going on to NCII. And I was part of that district, the Buncombe County thing for math. And I was like, we really need to get our general ed teachers. It's not just our special ed teachers. Our general ed teachers need to speak that same language. And the best way I found to do that was to do some professional development and then do some follow-up coaching, which is what we ended up doing. I took the first one, that math intervention one first, which, you know, I am like a devoted fan of Sarah Powell. I mean, I'm a devoted fan of Sarah Powell. You know, I just tell everyone about Sarah. No, have you been to Sarah's? Okay, let me show you where you have to go and get Sarah's stuff. Anyway, so when I did that, I'm like, okay, yes. I can see, and not only my EC teachers, but my general ed teachers as well. So when I opened up the course, and I opened it up to WNC, to the Western region, I didn't think anybody was going to do it. It was it's long, you know, there's a lot of activities. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll get like 15 or 20. And I was like, oh my God. And so I've done 6 of those courses, the NCII courses, and we had some extra funding from our grant this year. And again, because of the MTSS, we want especially our general ed teachers to be on that MTSS DBI gravy train. We put those as professional developments for the summer. And I only had 50 slots for funding. And I had 270 people sign up. So I had to say a lot of, I'm so sorry, we have no space left, a lot of times. So it's out there. People want to see that, what Carrie was describing. I think teachers want to see that. They want to see that growth. They want to exit those students. I think that's a special sauce. As teachers, we want to see that improvement.
I also think somebody put in the chat, Miss Stacy Hurt said Elsa equals the secret sauce. So I think she is right about that. It's also those champions that of DBI that see the value and then can communicate that value. So yes, the progress is great, but we appreciate you so much. Of course, we have more questions for you, but we're going to keep going. Carrie Jenkins, how are you?
I'm well. How about you guys?
Good. And you wrapped up this year. Everything's okay. Another school year in the books, right?
Yep, that's right.
Awesome. Okay. So Carrie, given the incredible positive outcomes that you've had, and I've gotten the opportunity to watch this journey from afar, just being kind of somewhat involved in that Wyoming video, just watching your students talk about their own progress has been incredible. So given so many of the positive outcomes that you have had, what are the next steps for you and your school, your districts? What do you think's coming up next?
Well, we've had a lot of discussions, but for as far as the district, we're going to continue with DBI, which is exciting, and get more teachers on board. And then as far as the building, I'm super excited because we'll be part of the MTSS pilot program. My school, along with 3 other schools, would be part of it. And so, like I said, I know that we worked a little backwards going from the top down, but my principal has been extremely supportive, and she is going to support this work. We'll be working with the state to implement MTSS in our building and developing a plan that is specific to our needs, and start with screening and developing intervention groups and looking at data and making decisions based on that. So we are so excited at our school. So that's our next steps.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Doubling down on the DBI process is what I heard, which I love. So that's awesome.
Yep.
Tom Jones, long time no see, buddy. How's it going? Is Tom's audio weird or is it mine? Okay.
You might have to, yeah, just mute and unmute. So.
Do I sound better now?
Tom, you kind of sounded like Mickey Mouse, which was quite an introduction. Maybe this panel wins for the most exciting. We had you doing a guest appearance, I guess. How are you?
There you go. I'm tired, but I'm here. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, Tom. Well, hey, we saw this very quick video that was incredibly impactful, right? With some really awesome data. And then it ended and we went to the panel. So I feel like it was left on a cliffhanger. We saw that data for 1 year. How have you seen similar growth and results in the follow-up years of your DBI implementation? And can you, I see you shaking your head. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. And I pulled up, we've tried to look at this so many different ways, because initially going back to our first year, we had 4 practitioners in the state, and the data we were getting back was phenomenal with those 4 practitioners. And it wasn't really pushback or a barrier, but you have those people out there that, you know, take a little bit more objective view. I get a little excited about, you know, things that are successful, and well, your in size is too small, right? There's too many variables, there's too many working parts to be able to say that this is 100% successful. So of course, our numbers continued to increase, and almost every year. The second year, we had 12 practitioners, then 26, and I'm sitting here looking, 72. We had 126 last year. We've got another 114-ish on top of that next year, this coming year, jumping on board. But in every case, what we've tried to do is analyze it exactly the same way, looking at those 3rd grade students. We've also tried to, like I mentioned in the video, expand it and look at it by districts, or even just narrowing it down to buildings with similar characteristics. And in every way, and I think I mentioned this at the end of the video that I had there, is that in every way possible that we've looked at this, the numbers continue for every cohort. They're very similar. So the data that I showed you in the video, and I apologize, that was actually 1 cohort older than what I have. And I have the current one here. And so in the video, the numbers showed a growth of 7.45 for those students scoring proficient. The more current data actually is showing 8.2. And this is going to be adding an additional, well, it's going to be doubling the total number of students that we saw in the data that I presented in the video. Those scoring below basic, in the video we talked about, it was 13.2% decrease in those scoring below basic. With the most current data, it's 14.23. So we've stayed in the ballpark, or in some cases, you know, marginally exceeded our numbers consistently year after year after year, despite a growing in size.
That's just incredible. Yeah, you're getting a lot of love in the chat for that. That is so encouraging. Rhode Island is feeling threatened by your implementation, so just watch out. Wyoming's coming for you. No, I'm just kidding. That's absolutely phenomenal, Tom. Of course, we have more questions for you. We're going to keep throwing them out right now. So Project Stair, I almost called it Project IRATS because I can't quit thinking about that now. But Project Stair, what's next? You finished up this year. What is implementation looking like for next year? What's in the future for Project Stair?
Yeah, so this year we did Project Stair completely virtual. So that was a really interesting switch for us. And so we provided all of our professional learning and all of our coaching virtually. We actually have a few teachers that we have never met face to face, but it worked out pretty well. But next year, we are going to do a more classic randomized control trial where we are going to recruit teachers in the Austin area, the Dallas area, and the Columbia, Missouri area, and randomly assign them to do Project Stair with us or to not do Project Stair. And we are going to be in classrooms doing observations, collecting data from both the teachers and the students. And so every year Project Stair has been a little bit different, which is shows the malleability of Project Stair. But next year we're going to be back in those classrooms collecting data and really ensuring that Project Stair is effective for teachers and their students.
Yeah, and Dr. Lemke put in the chat, fingers crossed for lots of teachers interested for Project Stair. So if you're a teacher and you're interested, reach out to Project Stair. Project Stair, quick one other question. What has been I know you guys have produced these amazing videos that I myself have pointed plenty of middle school math teachers to. What is one of the more popular videos that you guys are seeing people refer to over and over again? Do you have one? Can you think of one? That I probably really put you on the spot, but you could probably just lie to us. We might not.
Yeah, we'll just lie. I have two that there's one about not using keywords in problem solving. So I'll just go ahead and put that one out there because everybody knows I love talking about that. That one has got a lot of views. And one of the other ones that has gotten a lot of views is using partial products and an array for multiplication. I don't know why it's been viewed thousands of times, but yeah, it probably just got passed from one person to the next. But if you have any other ideas for videos you'd like to be made, the Lightboard Studio will be open again in August. So we'll be in there recording some videos.
Awesome. Awesome. Perfect. Okay. Robin, we had a question come in for you. What were some of the challenges that you had to overcome with going hybrid, remote with respect to DBI implementation? Because you never talked about them, you never complained about them. So let's talk about them now. What were some of those challenges that you had to overcome?
Well, what we did, we were in school similar to Wyoming since August, face-to-face, 4 days a week. The teachers worked. They had no plan time, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. They had then Wednesday was their plan day and kids were remote, but the teachers were still doing office hours. They had their IEP meetings, a lot of things going on during that time. So I think teacher fatigue was kind of part of that, taking this on in addition to all of this. We had a lot of teachers teaching. Our counselor had a small cohort. So we had small cohorts for every single teacher. So our counselor had a small cohort. Our special ed teachers had cohorts plus their special education caseload in addition to a small cohort, like teaching, reading, math, science, social studies. So I think there was a lot of fatigue with that. So that was hard. So finding a time when we would meet with the team. They didn't want to do it Wednesday because Wednesdays are already meeting out. So we met on Mondays right when school was out for an hour. First, we were virtual during that time, and then we were able to go face to face. So I think, again, pushing teachers for this new learning, but also realizing how much they had on their plates right now and how full everything was kind of a small little balance. Now, we did receive a grant in working with Jason at the College Department of Education. We were able to receive some grant money. And so we were able to stipend teachers. And I think that helped teachers. It wasn't a lot of money, but enough to say, okay, here, we're going to stipend you for a little bit of extra work. So trying to balance that. But again, the teachers did not complain. They took on this work. We monitored, we met, we worked through all of the DBI modules. And they were ready to say, okay, this is what we're going to integrate for next year. So I do have to give kudos to the teachers. I was there to facilitate, but they were the ones doing the hard work every day.
That's just incredible. Awesome, Robin. Okay, it looks like Elsa, next question is for you. And it now looks like you and Sarah Powell are fans of each other, so congratulations. So Elsa, how has Buncombe County, or tell us a little bit about how Buncombe County started to really roll out the DBI process with those individual students?
Okay, so we started with some cohorts first. We started with elementary school cohorts. And one of the things we did was we picked one of the schools that had the most difficult students. We started with them first. We started with the instructional coaches. We gave them some professional development. And then we went on with the administrators, administration, and then the MTSS coordinator came out, and we started with getting some of the teachers, not all of them. We did some co-partners, and that's how we started. We started out small with the most needy students, and then COVID happened, which was kind of hard. That was really tough. I was in the middle. I was doing, taking data on a student, and I was actually doing some intensive intervention with these two students. And then COVID happened, and I was taking the data, and he was improving. I was like, oh God, I really want to continue. And we couldn't. So that's when we went remote. But that's how we started it. We started out small with the most neediest of our schools, because we figured if we gave, I think research tells you that if you focus on the most neediest of your students, the rest of the school becomes even more successful. I think there's research on that. And so we decided that's how we were going to start rolling that out. And now in the fall, we are going to continue with that same school. We're adding that school, we're doing that school, and we're adding 2 others. So we're going to continue. But as far as the MTSS rollout, we worked with cohorts. That's how we did it. And we're just, I think this next year, because of COVID, it got all interrupted a little bit. We're starting this following year with our with our high schools, which is probably harder to do because of scheduling. High school, we block scheduling, so it's hard to do high school.
Yeah, so actually why does this keep happening? Oh yeah, I'm a great moderator, I forgot. But Carrie, that was actually a question that came in for you, is you kind of mentioned this, you've been coaching, now you've done it, and then you started coaching it, and then you said, I coached elementary, and then I coached high school. So what has been the biggest difference that you've been able to see to help Elsa out, to help everybody out, between that elementary implementation and that high school implementation?
It was quite the jump for me. It was actually junior high, but yeah. And I just kept thinking, no, wait, you're fine. I just kept thinking the structure is the same, the framework is the same. And I tried to share my resources as much as I could. And we had a lot of discussions about that progress monitoring and how important that data was, and looking at the data together. And I would say that that's what kind of kept us going, and how I felt like, we could work together. I kind of let go of that, oh my gosh, they're working on things that I'm not used to working on with my students, and just focused more on the data and trying to give them a different viewpoint. So we had some really great discussions based on that.
Awesome. And then while we are chatting with you, we had another question come in for you. So what is the biggest challenge that you faced in implementation of DBI, and how did you address it? That very much sounds like a pageant question. So you're on the spot now.
Right. I would say for me, the biggest challenge was the scheduling, and kind of really, I hate to say the word fight, but it was fighting for that time. Telling my students and my principal that the time I have with my students is very, very precious, and that they need that. And so not having, other teachers pull them from there, or, oh, I need to grab them for this. Nope, my students need this time, and making sure that I stuck by that. And I know behaviors happen, transitions happen, things like that, but it made me more accountable. Using those fidelity logs and making sure I had that, I was filling those out every day, and going, gosh, I thought I was doing the 30-minute session, but by the time we got down to it, it was 20 minutes. And okay, how can I change this? And making sure my students got everything that they needed. So I would say time was really hard, and making sure that everybody in my building knew how precious that was. And then also, I think the other thing that was difficult for me was just kind of passing that along to my team members and saying, hey, I want you to look at this with me. This is important. You know, what we do in here is valuable. And it took a little while. And gosh, I think I've been doing this for 3 years, and now we're just, you know, implementing this in our school as an MTSS, you know, model. So it has not been easy for sure, but it's been very valuable. And I think sharing that data and them watching me present the data to parents and, you know, showing the data to them at IEP meetings and them seeing their progress on goals gets everybody excited and getting that buy-in. So
I just know I would have been a better special educator if you had been in my building advocating for that protected time. They're always like, oh, special ed, they don't need that resource room. We can have a pep rally during that time, right? No big deal. That's awesome, Carrie. Tom, I have a little insider information. You kind of talked about you are starting nothing exciting. Well, it is exciting. It's exciting. It's not like it's your birthday or anything, not like that. So insider information that you are starting a community of practice on DBI. Can you talk a little bit more about what that's going to look like, or have you already done it? Can you speak a little bit about that for us?
Right. So, excuse me, we actually have two community of practices. The first of which we launched our first one back in January. We had 79 practitioners. When I say practitioners, actual implementing practitioners, I think there, and I have to look at my numbers, we had about 50 some, but then the rest of them were made up with our district sped directors, our school psychologists, but we were implementing with all teachers. So we opened the floodgates and we said, you know, beforehand we were working under the SIP for just with special education, but this go around we brought in general education teachers, Title I reading teachers, and we worked everywhere from, we also expanded from K through 8. So we really opened that up. We've got some really valuable data. I don't have it available yet. Our external evaluator is still crunching those numbers on that. But everything that we got back from our practitioners was very, very positive. And then last month we held a stakeholder feedback meeting, again, with those practitioners so that we can move forward and make tweaks to that model to relaunch it again, starting this time in the fall. The other community of practice that we found a huge need for just in launching this one for practitioners is in administrators. So I've borrowed, thank you very much, Ms. Benz, Dr. Benz, sorry. An administrator model, and we're currently in the process of Wyomingizing that, and we plan on rolling it out concurrently with our practitioner community of practice this fall as well.
Awesome. I just don't know how you find the time. I really don't, but maybe if you write a book on using your time, I would definitely read it. That's awesome. Okay, we have a few questions that have come in. Michael, it looks like some people are responding to yours in the chat. How do you find time for high school? So check out that that link that Rebecca Zumeta put in there. It's about scheduling because we are running. We have about 4 minutes left and we have more questions than we have time. So maybe just by a show of hands, if you feel like you would want to answer this question, how have you engaged parents in this process? I know Carrie, you definitely have. So I'll allow you to kind of go first about that parent engagement piece. But after she's finished answering, if there are others that want to speak to that part, just raise your hand or your icon and you can answer it. So Carrie, go ahead.
Hey, well, of course, during IEP meetings, I communicate using, you know, my data and the graphs. But then I also found, you know, we do progress reports quarterly on their IEP goals, but I also found it very powerful to kind of show them once a month. We have, with the use of, one good thing that came out of COVID, I guess, was we had an app where we could text parents anytime we needed to. And so I really utilized that when I saw that my students were making gains. I would kind of shoot them a quick text at their graph and communicate. And, you know, they just appreciated that. And they would tell me at the end of the quarter how much they love that. And, you know, sometimes it wasn't always great news. I would say, hey, I noticed that I need to make a change. They're flatlining, we need to do something a little bit different, increase minutes or do something different. and show that, but I had data to back that up. And so that was really powerful as well. I feel like I've had more communication these last 3 years with my students rather than just doing it, quarterly on progress reports or annually at IEP meetings. And they understand it. That's the biggest thing, is that they're able to see it visually, not just hear a bunch of numbers. So I think that was really important as well. So.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't viewed that Wyoming video, parents talking about their kids explaining the data to them gets me every time. So that's awesome. How about others? Have you guys had specific engagement strategies for parents? I know maybe it possibly is outside the scope, or plans for parent engagement as well.
Well, one of the things that we had talked about in our MTSS leadership was to add a couple of parents to our team, just so that they are aware of the information and be better informed about it. So, and get the parental, to be honest with you, get that parent aspect of what's going on in students' lives. I think that's also important. So we had talked about that in our MTSS team, trying to get a parent on that team. Just not like on all the teams, but on specific teams that we can actually get them involved. And then through our NCII grant, we do have part of our implementation teams. We include parents on our implementation team and our advisory team, especially because I'm a parent of a special needs student. So I know how important it is to have that aspect. So when Carrie describes going into an IEP meeting, I've been in an IEP meeting as the parent. And when a teacher gives me the data and shows me how much he's improved or how much he's grown, that just makes my heart grow, my heart sing. And I tell that to my teachers as well. I said, as the parent sitting on the other side, what I want to see is, don't tell me what he can't do. Tell me what he has done. How much has he grown? What has he learned? That's what I want to know. And so bringing that perspective, I think, is very important. And so we want to have a couple of parents on that MTSS team, and we do have parents on our advisory team, just so that we can get that perspective.
Man, I love that so much, Elsa. And I think you bring up such a good point, not being an afterthought. Bring those parents in so that when you're planning these things, there's that thoughtfulness around it. Well, team, we are out of time. We had 2 more questions that we didn't get to. We will try to answer those in the chat, but I cannot thank this panel enough for your time being here. I really appreciate you guys. You guys are all my special heroes.